Well, like I said, Rotimi Kade, who is an Arise analyst, joins me now from New York to shed more light specifically on the 14th Amendment as it relates to the U.S. citizenship saga. Good to have you this weekend. Now, let's look at it from the constitutional implications. How does the 14th Amendment's citizenship clause apply to children born to undocumented immigrants or temporary visitors to the U.S. or in the U.S.?
Well, Olije, I think that's the bone of contention here. The 14th Amendment, Section 1 did not specifically say that, like it just, was straightforward that anyone born in the United States is a citizen. But I think the Trump administration is contending with the part that says in subject of the jurisdiction thereof. End of quote. So that's the contention that the Trump administration wants the Supreme Court to actually explain, because basically that is exactly what the bone of contention is. And the fate of babies born in the United States is still what it is. The status quo, which is that once you're born in the United States, irrespective of your immigration status, that you are a citizen of the United States. Now, this case has been brought up so many times, but for purposes of history, in 1898, the Supreme Court actually addressed this issue, which is that, it does not matter who was born in the United States, except, and even in Section 1 of the 14th Amendment actually explicitly said that, except you're born from, your parents are diplomats or you're foreign military in the United States, then you cannot automatically become the citizen of the United States. I think those things are really explicitly there in this section. There's no ambiguity in it. But the reason why the Supreme Court said, you know what, we're going to need some time for us to be able to come up with a right judgment or the right interpretation for this particular phrase or statement in subject of the jurisdiction thereof.
So I'm wondering, should or will the Supreme Court's ruling potentially overturn the 1898 precedent set by the United States versus the Wong Kim Ark if this goes Trump's way?
The Supreme Court cannot overrule itself. That is, the precedent has been set. So, but this time, I think what the Supreme Court is trying to do is to make more clarifications on what that particular section is talking about in relations to Trump administration's immigration policy. And of course, we know that, those precedents that have been set by the Supreme Court most likely is still going to remain. But again, a lot of contention as to, this particular Supreme Court, which basically a lot of people argue that favor Trump administration more. From the beginning of this year to now, rule in favor of the president, and the fears of people who are pro birthright citizenship is that this might go the other way for the very first time. Maybe the Supreme Court might just have another way of interpreting this particular section, which has been dealt with 127 years ago.
And that will be very, interesting because, like you said, a lot of people are saying that the Supreme Court swings to Trump's way. But does Congress have any role to play in this? I know they legitimate over these things, but do they have a role to play in this?
Well, first of all, I think the first step needs to be taken, which is what the Supreme Court actually come up with. If the Supreme Court said, you know what, Section 14 means, and what I said before, the phrase in there that said in subject of the jurisdiction thereof, means that people that are in the country illegally and people on temporary visas do not, or their babies, if they give birth to babies in the United States, the baby cannot become the citizens of the United States. Then the Congress can now move and perhaps maybe expand Section 14 even more explicitly so that for future references.
Is the expansion I was actually, talking about. But let's look at now the immigration policy. How might this decision impact U.S. immigration policy and the treatment of undocumented immigrants?
Well, already it's been impacting people that are coming into this country, or people that have been in this country for decades, negatively. Because when you look at it, the Trump administration have moved more swiftly, in curbing the illegal immigration in the United States. A lot of people are in ICE custody as we speak, and thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people have been deported already. And this is actually, upsetting the apple cart, the way, a lot of people had expected that the Trump administration is going to move, but is moving in a different direction. Some people said it's targeting some, particular race. Some people are saying that it's not been fair to everybody, and everything does not, apply. The rules actually apply differently to different races in the United States. So there's been a lot of argument back and forth as to how this will definitely engender accountability and transparency. And don't forget, even the United States before the Trump administration, first term and second term, they know that they have millions of people that are in this country that are in this country illegally. And the United States have learned to live with it because these people contribute into Social Security. They contribute, they pay taxes every year, and they don't get anything back. So previous administration has decided, you know what, we're benefiting from these people, cheaper labor for our industries, etc. And they're also paying into our services. So why not just leave them and go through the normal naturalization process and all of that? But again, the Trump administration have something different of its sleeves.
So how might this, decision affect international relations, particularly with countries that have significant immigrant populations in the U.S.?
Well, we've seen that in the past month. Remember the South Korean, that were actually ambushed in one of the industries somewhere in Michigan. And they were forced to, be deported back to South Korea. And, that has sort of bruised the relationship between the United States and South Korea. And of course, we know that even Mexico has been affected negatively. And the Mexican president, Sheinbaum, and President Trump literally don't see eye to eye on that, because a Mexican president believes that the Mexican citizens of the United States and people that came into the country legally have contributed into the United States economy tremendously, especially when it comes to farm produce and etc. So, and this is going to affect more countries, but I think the Trump administration do not really care. They want to stick to the policy, the promises they made to their voters. President Trump already said it. I reiterate it all the time, that I said this during the campaign trail. I want to make sure that I keep my promises and make sure that, my base are intact, happy with what I'm doing. And part of the arguments with, the federal district courts circuits that took, the Trump administration to court regarding the order that was the travel ban and immigration, birthright citizenship, I should say, that, hey, we have the mandate of the people, and this is what we're going to do. Supreme Court in July this year actually favored Trump because they felt that the injunctions do not override the executive orders of the president. So the executive order of the president will still be in effect while the Supreme Court is still listening to the cases.
We can't talk about this without, mentioning the social and economic impacts of, the decision, whatever the case is. What are the potential economic and social consequences of ending birthright citizenship, including effects on education, on healthcare, and employment?
Well, first of all, I think we're going to be seeing less contribution to the social security purse. Secondly, we're going to be looking at, the labor force, especially in in the farms in the United States. We've heard cases of, farmers not doing pretty well. Some have declared bankruptcy. We'll also look at the construction industries where we've seen significant um, non um, non-citizens being part of that particular industry, and the housing market obviously have been affected for the past few months when the Trump administration began this onslaught on the immigration cases. We're definitely going to be seeing ripple effects, going down the spiral to different industries. And we might not feel the economic impacts right now, but obviously in different quarters, perhaps maybe next year, we're going to be seeing those signals, from the statistics of Bureau of Employment on how the economy is doing. But they're already, symptoms. We've seen signs, we've seen the cracks, in the wall that, yeah, this is going to have a lot of economic impact if the cases are not being treated in a way that's going to sort of, kind of balance up, the immigration policies and as against what the economy actually requires.
So quickly now, before I let you go, how might this decision also influence public opinion and social cohesion in the United States? Plus, how might the Supreme Court's ruling on nationwide injunctions impact future immigration policy and litigations?
Well, already the country is divided because a lot of Republicans and people who voted for President Trump said, well, this is exactly what I voted for. We needed a president who is strong. We needed a president who can keep to their words. A lot of those people believe that there's going to be more job openings for them and their kids. And there's absolutely no way immigrants should be getting more benefits than the real people of the United States, especially people that are struggling. While we have on the other side that believes that this is right unconstitutional, it's more tyrannical because a president cannot just make a unilateral decision on a very sensitive issue like the birthright citizenship and how the country is going to run. It needs, the three arms of the government to actually make those things. So there's been a lot of opinions that have been parallel for the past, few months that the Trump administration came to power, because essentially you want to see that, hey, is this a unified force? Absolutely not. We've seen, different, litigations and injunctions to, stop this. So in some cases, we've seen, rallies, in support or against of what the president is doing.
All right. Thank you so much, Rotimi Kade, for joining us on Arise America today.